Despite not being a dealer, we are huge fans of Paul Reed Smith guitars. We are fortunate enough to have this high-end Paul Reed Smith acoustic guitar, and today we're going to talk about why PRS failed at the high-end acoustic guitar market and why maybe they should have succeeded. Stick around. Hey, you're watching Alamo Music TV. My name is Chris McKee with Alamo Music in San Antonio, Texas. You can find us online at alamomusic.com. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, like our videos. We appreciate it. If you want to support the channel, you can also visit our spring store link below for custom swag and check out our podcast with Cooper and I. It's called the Fretboard Confessional, wherever you get your podcasts. So let's talk about PRS guitars. Paul Reed Smith has been building some amazing electric guitars for a long time. And back in 2009, they released a series of high-end acoustic guitars. And they are phenomenal instruments. I've got an Angelus Cutaway in my hands right here. It's a very special guitar. We'll tell you a little about the specs here. But 2009, they introduce it, and you know, it's pretty cool. They've got Ricky Skaggs playing and really endorsing the guitars. He's such an amazing player, and the guitars have this kind of unique look to them. There's some unique build aspects to these guitars. And they didn't really, I think, find a good a route in the market. Now, they continue to sell acoustic guitars really through two mediums in their lineup. One, you have the Acoustic SE line. And those are import acoustic guitars similar to their import electric SE line, and they're really good guitars. So they're what you would consider mid-price. I would think for the most part it's a solid top with layered back and sides. There may be some all-solid versions in that mix. Because we're not a dealer, I'm not up on exactly what kind of the higher end of the SE acoustic line has, but they are their own proprietary shapes. They have their own proprietary bracing, their own kind of aesthetic. But even with the SE line, it kind of seems, at least to me, that they have failed to hit and be as successful as a lot of other brands have been. That's really true when it comes to the high-end stuff. So when they first came out, there was no SE line, and they introduced the Angelus first, and I think there's the Tonari and one other one that someone can help me out in the comments below and tell you as far as what the body shapes are. But the Angelus was kind of the big thing. And what it had was all solid wood construction, a proprietary bracing pattern, a very unique pickup system, and PRS's attention to detail and aesthetic choices. And this guitar is just absolutely beautiful as a testament to how well and how unique these guitars were made. And I really liked them from the get-go. There were a lot of things that were taking place back then. There were some other, I think that was around the time Taylor launched our Taylor, which is also no longer around. I think they make one occasionally just to keep the brand alive. But you could argue that the high-end acoustic guitar market is maybe a little bit crowded, but the bigger problem is that it is also filled with consumers like you and like me that tend to be kind of stuck in our ways. We like what we like, and we're a bit curmudgeon-y when it comes to something new. If you want to see proof of that, just go back to the 90s or the early 2000s to read how many people hated the fact that Taylor used a bolt-on neck. And now it's a fairly common practice in a lot of high-end acoustic guitars. Some of you will still be like, no, that shouldn't be anywhere on an acoustic guitar. So there you go, evidence of the problem. So what happened with PRS acoustic guitars? I think it's the same thing that happened with Taylor electric guitars. Anytime a company tries to introduce something that's not in their normal wheelhouse, it's a very big struggle when they're known so well for something else. So Taylor, back in 2008, introduced a solid body electric guitar line. They discontinued it in 2013. I owned two of those. I think there were probably some missteps that were made, particularly when it comes to like the radius that was used on those guitars, the neck and stuff. But they were also pretty cool in their own right. A lot of the stuff was completely proprietary, and they were good guitars, but they failed to find a foothold. Similarly, Fender guitars try to introduce really high-end acoustic guitars. In about 2011, 2012. These were effectively custom shop guilds built in the guild custom shop, all high-end, all solid wood construction. We had some here. If you go way back in this channel's history, one of the earliest videos I ever did, I'm reviewing some of those Fender acoustic guitars that were all solid wood. One of them that I really liked was a Dreadnought with an Engelmann spruce top and mahogany back and sides. It sounded great. played great, looked great. And my argument in that video was the problem is it said Fender on the headstock. And so Fender has, one, an identity as an electric guitar builder, and two, a reputation as building mid-priced to low-priced acoustic guitars that are just good enough to be in those price ranges. So when they try to build something higher end, it's a real struggle. That is basically, I think, what happened with PRS. Because I'm going to tell you, spoiler alert, you're going to hear this guitar in a little bit. This guitar is phenomenal, okay? It's phenomenal. It sounds great. It plays great. It's a really, really good solo-style instrument. So why wouldn't someone get it? In fact, the acoustic guitar world is full of small luthiers, small builders that slowly build up reputation. And you really, if you look at acoustic guitars, what we've seen is in the last 10 to 15 years, they have generally outpaced most electric guitar sales. So it's interesting to see an American manufacturer like PRS, it's based in Maryland, building really, really good guitars, really high-end guitars, when they already have a high-end electric guitar clientele, and yet struggling to find success within that segment. And the only thing that I can come up with is that perhaps the guitars were just a little too different for the general buying public. And two, people simply associated PRS with electric guitars, and it was hard for them to consider that they would make a really good acoustic guitar as well. Or if they wanted a high-end guitar, they were going to go for something that had more of a name brand to it in that particular segment, like Martin, like Taylor, like Gibson. And that's an unfortunate thing, in my opinion, because this guitar is phenomenal. Let's talk about it. So this is an Angelus Cutaway. This is a private stock model, I believe. It's from 2013. We happen to get this in on a trade, because we love trades, if you didn't know that. It features a beautiful spruce top with some nice bear claw on it, abalone top border, abalone rosette, offset with flamed maple on the rosette and around the binding. And the back and sides are Brazilian rosewood. So on the back of the headstock here, it says USA only, which is crazy. You can't even take this into Brazil, where the wood was born. Imagine that. Also, while we're looking at the back of the headstock, check out those tuners. These are proprietary. This is one of the things I think is super cool about Paul Reed Smith and the team at PRS Guitars, is that they'll just make a tuner. They'll be like, you know what, we think this is better. We're not gonna source it from somewhere else. We're gonna come up with our own design. That takes guts, because that is not inexpensive to deal with the design aspect of it, the tooling aspect, making sure that you can either produce them or order them according to your spec. There's something to be said. You can't just say, oh, look, those are pretty tuners I've never seen anywhere else. There's something to it. I also like this headstock. This is the old pre-factory headstock. You might recognize it because it's on Santana guitars, which are built more like the pre-factory PRS guitars. I own one of those, very good guitars. It's got kind of a chunky neck to it. I think it's kind of what they would consider a wide neck. I think it's very comfortable. And of course, you have the famous birds gracing this ebony fingerboard, also done in abalone, but it's an abalone outline, which, again, I am a fan of. Now, some people don't like the birds, and most people, I think, love the birds. If you don't like the birds, that's cool. I get it. I think they're nice. Maybe they've been overdone. But these are now, they've been private stock instruments. You can kind of order this, I think, however you want at the end of the day. Beautiful setup, bone nut. It's, I will say, Paul's all about his scales. So this is an interesting scale length. It's 25 1/4 or 25.25 inch scale length, which is different than most every other acoustic guitar that's out there. I think what that does is it gives it a nice snappiness, good volume, but there's a slinkiness to it that something that's like 25.5 inches probably doesn't necessarily have. And then inside is where things get really interesting. So the bracing on this follows a particular idea, and that idea is that it should act like a speaker. Your back and your side should be well braced, and your top should be a little bit thinner and flexible. To do that, they've kind of combined steel string with classical guitar tradition. So it's a scalloped X brace design, but it's also fan braced as well. And so you've got a scalloped X brace, and then you've got fan braces kind of in this lower bout. This guitar is really resonant. It sounds really great. It's got a nice low end. It's got a wonderful high end, and I think it serves the tone woods that it's built out of pretty well. So I'm going to stop talking. Take a listen for yourself. So there you have it. I think they're wonderful instruments, and I think it's unfortunate that they didn't really find a foothold. Now, can you still get one? I honestly don't know the answer to that question. As I mentioned before, we're not a PRS dealer. When I went to PRS's website, in fact, if you search for an Angelus private stock, you'll find a link to it on their website under a banner that says this is a 2023 model. And if you go to 2024 models and you pull up private stock stuff, there is no mention of acoustic guitars. So I don't know the answer of whether or not they are producing these still as a custom one-off. It could be that maybe, hopefully, they're gearing up to try their hand at this again. I think they're a company that's very capable. It really just depends upon what the market will respond to. And it's interesting about what the market will and will not respond to, because a lot of guitars that we consider to be amazing struggled initially. One that comes to mind is the Gibson Les Paul. And I know you're like, what? If you don't know, Gibson discontinued the Les Paul. It struggled from a sales standpoint, and they made changes to it. Starting in 58, they went to the Burst, and then they had figure tops in 59 and 60. The ES335 is called the Burst Killer because when it was introduced, it outsold the Les Paul. And then it became the SG. And then it was eventually brought back, but it wasn't brought back until there was a response to it because some really young, hot players like Eric Clapton were playing these Les Pauls. But they'd effectively been discontinued by that point. So sometimes maybe something comes out that the market's not quite ready for. Now in 2024, maybe the market is ready for a high-end acoustic guitar from PRS again. And I say that because, you know what? As a dealer, we sell an awful lot of high-end acoustic guitars. I think there's room in that market for something that is well-produced. And this, I'll put it this way, I've played some guitars today. This is a phenomenal instrument. So we happen to have this. We're lucky to have it right now. I don't know how much longer we'll have it. Brazilian rosewood guitars, there's not a whole lot of them out there. If you want information about this guitar, you can go to our website, which is alamomusic.com. You'll see all of our photography, and you'll see all the specifications about this guitar. You can also message us. You can buy it online. You can come in. You can play it yourself or call. It's in really good shape for being a pre-owned guitar. Whoever had this before really loved it and took care of it, and I think it'll bless the next owner. So make sure you check that out. If you're new to our channel, make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, like our videos, and leave a comment below. Do you own a PRS acoustic guitar? Did you play one? Did you not like it? Did you like it? I'd like to hear from you what you think is going on when it comes to builders that try to enter a market like this, produce a really great guitar, and fail to have success. So I'm hoping PRS gets another round and crack at it, because Paul is a maniac when it comes to always trying to fix a problem. That's what's great about guitar builders. They've all got a problem to fix, and it's wonderful to be on the receiving end of that. So as always, thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.